of the flesh of Jesus, man, that's what persuaded me that I was loved by God. Yes. And it gave me intimacy with the Father. I had intimacy with Jesus because Jesus is a human. And so then I saw Jesus, he's a human, and I see he has sin and death on him. Then I see that I am a human and I have sin and death on me. And then I see the Father showed up and cleansed Jesus's body from the wound of death, right? And so I see that he cleansed a human being's body from the wound of death. And that caused me to know the Father's heart and the integrity in his thoughts and intentions towards me. And when I began to know that, I started feeling loved by God. And I started finding myself abiding in the love of God. Yeah. Right. And that changes everything. And that's what John said. It's like, that's the evidence that we're supposed to look to weigh whether or not we're loved by God. Yeah. Right. We're not supposed to look at our bank account or our relationships or our jobs or anything that's going on in the world, our government. We're not supposed to look at those things to try to judge whether we're loved or not, or to even try to feel loved. Right. The metric we use to judge whether we're loved or not is that God come and manifested his life inside of the flesh of this man, Jesus. And this man, Jesus, had sin and death in him, just like we did. And he didn't just have anyone's sin and death. He had our sin and death. And so that showed me what was in the Father's heart for me, even when I was dead in sin. Okay. Now that's the only thing I use to judge whether or not I'm loved by God. Right. And what the world will always try to do is get you to look at what's going on around you to judge whether you're loved by God or not. Right. Mm-hmm. It'll try to get you to look at your circumstances to judge whether God's there or not, or whether God's for you, or whether his face is shining down upon you, or whether he's forsaken you or not. Right. I mean, remember the Pharisees, they saw Jesus nailed to the tree. They looked at the death he was dying and they said, that's got to be a sign that God has forsaken this guy. Yeah. Do you see what they looked at to judge whether he was loved by God or not? They looked at the death and the sin that manifested in the world. Well, that's a big problem because all of us human beings were in a world with sin and death, and we had our own sin and death. And so if we think sin and death is a sign that we're forsaken by God or that we're not loved by God, then we ain't never going to go to rest in his love for us. We ain't never going to find ourselves abiding in his love. We're going to all the time be abiding in our own works or our own self-preservation. Right? Mm-hmm. And so we see the Pharisees thought Jesus was forsaken by God. The reason why is because they looked at the death and the sin that come upon him as a sign. Right? Now, we were all the same way. We see the sin and death in the world that come upon us as a sign that God abhorred us. Right? He despised us. He looked at us in our death and he thought, these guys suck, man. Right? and that's right. And so we weren't having intimacy with what was really in God's heart, right? We were having intimacy with something else. And so when God showed up and manifested his life and his immortality, when he glorified the flesh of Jesus with his immortality, and John says, and I saw that, and I saw what was in God's heart towards a man who had the sin and death of the world on him. I started to see what was in God's heart towards me, even when I had sin and death upon me. Right. And I started to see his heart. His heart was only filled with kind thoughts. His heart was only filled with loving kindness and goodness towards me. He only thought of how he wanted to raise me up out of the pit. He only thought about how he wanted to brush the death off of me, how he wanted to wash me from the blood of death that I was clothed in. He wanted to make the blood I was clothed in white as snow. He wanted to wash me from the filthiness of death. And not that he thought that I was filthy, but that death is filthy for us, right? Mm-hmm. It's contrary to us. It's like we went and got pushed down in a ditch, right? Or we rode our bike too fast and we stumbled off of our bike and fell face first in a ditch, right? That's what death is like. Yeah. And so John says, when I see that God come and washed us clean from that death, man, I really started seeing what was in God's heart for my life. I really started seeing what was in God's heart for me, even when I was unfaithful, even when I was ungodly, even when I was a sinner. This is what was in God's heart for me, to come and to manifest the glory of his immortality in my physical body and cause my whole person, my whole spirit, soul, and body to overcome this world and the death that's in this world. That's what's in God's heart for me.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen.
And there's no sinning I can do to change what's in God's heart. Right. There's no amount of falling short that I can complete that can change what's in God's heart for me. Right. It's unmovable what's in his heart for me. Right.
Yes.
And so it's beautiful what you say there. That's how we judge that God loves us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When you said that he heals us from the serpent's bite and from the poison of the asp, it just puts such a completely different perspective on what happened on the cross than what traditional Christianity tells us happened on the cross. It's so much focused on sin and sin behavior and forgiveness and the wrong definition of forgiveness and the wrong definition of sin. But when you start to think about the fact that the resurrection heals us from the bite of death, man, that's powerful. Then you begin to understand, just as you said, what the Father's heart is, what the intent. I still remember when we were in Tulsa and you preached on the intent of God's heart, and what an awesome message that was, because very few people even stop to think about, well, what's the intent of God's heart, right? Yeah. The intent of God's heart is to separate us from what's killing us. And this is how he did it, through Jesus on the cross and resurrected him into an incorruptible life. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean,
yeah. That's why we can talk about it every week.
Jesus was bit by the serpent on the cross, right? He was bruised by the serpent. He wasn't bruised by God.
Right.
Okay. And some of you think, well, doesn't Isaiah 53 say that God was pleased for Jesus to be bruised? Yeah, it does say that. But it's talking about all of God being pleased for Jesus to be bruised. And if you read at the beginning of Isaiah 53, it says that Jesus was smitten and stricken by us. That's what it means when it says he bore our griefs and our sorrows. We were filled with grief and sorrows because of death, and then we nailed him to a tree. Not you and me personally, but mankind did. Right? They nailed Jesus to a tree. And the Pharisees were taken captive by the serpent. They were the seed of the serpent. And so they bruised Jesus, and then they said that he was smitten and stricken by God. Right? That's what Isaiah says. It says that mankind, a mankind who was taken captive by the serpent, they bruised Jesus by nailing him to a tree. Then they looked at Jesus bruised, and they said, oh, he's been smitten and stricken by God. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And then it gets down and it says, Isaiah says that it pleased God for Jesus to be bruised. And if you go back and look in Genesis 3, God told the serpent that the seed of woman would crush his head and he would bruise his heel.
Right.
Right? Now, the nail went through Jesus's heel when he's nailed to that cross. And he crushed the serpent's head because he destroyed the power of the serpent on the cross, right? And so the serpent bruised Jesus with death. He bit Jesus. The wages of the serpent's iniquity was laid upon Jesus, right? And that iniquity bit him with death. The serpent bit him with death, right? And now God says, we're pleased here for Jesus to be bit by death, because now we can cleanse Jesus as a man from the wound of the serpent's bite. And when we cleanse Jesus from the wound of the serpent's bite and raise him up in a flesh that's had death completely removed in it, that's going to crush the serpent's head. And then all the people that can see us condemn death in the flesh of this man Jesus, all those that can see us cleanse death out of the body of Jesus Christ when he's raised from the dead, they will be healed from the venom of the serpent, right? Their whole lives will be healed. And it's not just talking about, well, one day I'll be raised up also in a body that's glorified, immortal. It's not just a future thing. The bite of the serpent impacts us now, right? The bite of the serpent fills our conscience with fear and laboring and toiling to try to get life, right? The serpent bites us with death, and through that death, filling our hearts with lack and fear, that takes us captive to laboring and toiling, trying to gather life to ourselves, right? And then that brings forth all manner of the fruit of the flesh: envy, gossiping, backbiting, all that kind of stuff. It takes us from rest, right? It's death that takes us from rest. It's death that brings forth the fruit of sin in us. And so for our lives to be healed is that our lives can be healed now. The way we're healed now is that when we see what God did to condemn death in the flesh of Jesus when he raised him from the dead, that can put our hearts to rest. It puts our hearts to rest by removing fear from our hearts.
Amen.
Because the death that made us afraid, we see how God is with us to conquer it. Yeah. We see that this guy, he can even cleanse the wound of death from our physical bodies. My goodness, right? It's not even that we're going to go be Casper the Ghost one day and or be reincarnated as a cow or a dog, and we're going to somehow continue to live as a ghost or a spirit somewhere else. No, this guy can get it right to even cleanse our bodies from death, and he can get it right to cleanse this earth from death. Holy smokes. Right. Now, when we behold that starts removing fear from our hearts. It restores rest to our flesh, and then it heals us from the works of the flesh, right? So we're healed from fear, we're healed from laboring and toiling, Amen. And we're healed from the works of the flesh now, right? Through the scene of what God did to crush the serpent's head when the serpent was bruising Jesus, right? I hope everybody can see that. And the way you weigh scriptures, you see how it says it pleased God for Jesus to be bruised in Isaiah 53? This is what we all did. We all said, God bruised Jesus, right? That's what we all said when we read that. Do you know why we say that? Because we're thinking like Adam thought in the garden. We saw our sin, we saw our nakedness, and we condemned ourselves. Our own heart condemned us, and we thought, well, certainly God must be condemning us. So then we read scriptures that say it pleased God for Jesus to be bruised, and we automatically conclude God bruised Jesus, because we sit with the idea that God was so displeased with us because of our sin, right? And then we read that into the text, and then we completely forget that God himself told the serpent that he would crush the seed of woman, and the seed of woman would crush his head, right?
Yeah.
So God said who would bruise Jesus. We don't get to Isaiah 53 and decide for ourselves, right? And so you see that word bruised, and you start going back and looking at it, right? And so Isaiah 53 is talking about Jesus being smitten and stricken because of a mankind who was bit by the death of the serpent. And then it talks about God coming and cleansing Jesus from the wound. The chastisement of our peace would be upon him, right? And so the death that came forth from the serpent's bite bruised Jesus on the cross. And then God chastised that death that came upon Jesus on the cross. He chastised it in the body of Jesus when he raised Jesus from the dead, free from death. And so God chastised the death that was killing us in the flesh of Jesus when he cleansed Jesus' flesh from death. He bruised death in the flesh of Jesus with his life. And you say, well, how did he bruise death in the flesh of Jesus? He purified Jesus' flesh from death, right? He purified it. And so there was a life in Jesus that bruised death. And so God chastised death. He dropped an elbow on death. He dropped a chop on death. He did like a kung fu on death inside of the flesh of Jesus. He used the flesh of Jesus to whoop death's ass, right? And he did it in the resurrection, right? It was like a TKO. It was like a knockout blow. He knocked death out in the resurrection. It was like, that's it, man. You're out, right? Like when Apollo Creed couldn't get back up. You're out. When Mr. T couldn't get back up. You ever seen Mike Tyson knock a guy out? You can Google Mike Tyson, man, when he was a young guy, and watch some of his knockouts. And within like 90 seconds, he's knocking full-grown heavyweights completely senseless, right? Where they can't even get up. And that's what God did to death. And he used the flesh of Jesus to do it, right? The serpent came with this bite, bruised Jesus with death like nobody's business. Jesus absorbed the bruising and the beating of death into his body. And then God, the Father, Son, and Spirit, was in this guy Jesus. And they welled up their life inside of this body that had been bruised with all death. And then they brought a bruising to death inside of his body, right? And now we see that in the resurrection. We're a people whose heart was made sick because of the death that was in the world. It's a sick heart that causes people to labor and toil for life. It's a sick heart. And so God come and healed our hearts by chastising the death that made our hearts sick in the flesh of Jesus when he raised him from the dead. Right? Does that make any sense?
Totally. Yeah, it really, it adds more and more. It connects with Isaiah 53:5 that says we were healed by his stripes. I mean, all those things you went through that we were healed by, man, it goes like, boom, we were healed from all of that by his stripes on the cross. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see how we're brought peace by God chastising death in the flesh of Jesus, because the thing that was warring against us was death.
Right.
Comfort ye, my people, Isaiah said. Tell them their warfare has been accomplished, for I have given them double for their iniquity. Listen, man, again, we read that verse and we don't break it down, and we think it's saying that God gave a double punishment for sin. That's not what it's saying there, man. What it's saying is what Paul said in Romans 6 or Romans 5, where he said, though sin abounded unto death, causing death to reign over all people, God superabounded, or grace superabounded over sin unto eternal life. And so Isaiah is speaking on behalf of God, and he's saying, comfort my people. Tell my people that where sin was causing death to abound over them, I have come and superabounded over their death with my life. And when they can hear that their warfare has been accomplished because my life has superabounded over their death, that will bring them peace, right? And so Isaiah 53 is talking about that. Death was warring against us. And then God chastised the death that was warring against us. And now we see that God accomplished our warfare. That though death was reigning over us or abounding over us because of iniquity, God has come and superabounded over the death that was reigning over us by the righteousness of one man, Jesus, who took the bruising of death into his body. And in the place of having the bruising of death in his body, he didn't try to heal himself or justify himself or preserve his own life. He called out to the one who loved his life, Abba. And then God could cleanse his body from death or chastise the death that come upon him by raising him from the dead. And then we could see our warfare accomplished in the flesh of this man, Jesus, when he's raised from the dead. And then we feel peace.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
That's how we feel the peace there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, that's good. Totally good.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
You bet. Any thoughts out there?
In my mind, it's just not, I don't even think of death. I'm already dead to the world. To be honest with you, Jill and I living on this island, I don't even think about it. We're as peaceful as we can be. For the past 2 weeks, I've got a new carpenter helper. He works for free. His name is Jesus. And it's just him and I hanging out here doing this work, and there ain't nobody around but animals. The other day, I'm up in the attic last week, and it's like 120 up there, and that's in the morning. And I just sat down and I just said his name, and a cool breeze came up the steps, up the ramp in the attic, and hit my face and lasted for like 15 seconds. And I laughed out loud, you know. And so the life is just not the resurrection. For me, it's like, this is my best friend. So this is the life you had planned from the beginning, and I'm living it now. So I could be too much of a doer. You might say I'm a little excessive compulsive, and I work too much. Would you say that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she'd say that. So this being at home 2 weeks, I'm doing stuff around the house that really needs to be done. There are some real electrical problems and some things, surprises for her. But there's nobody ringing my phone and telling me I need this done, I need that done. The world has stepped away, and I have entered a place like I've never been. I can't ever remember feeling like this and feeling so connected to him, because all the noise is gone, and it's just him. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but that's part of the life that I think he talks about so much. It's just not eternal life. It's the life right now, and it is fantastic.
How'd you like to retire and deal with the coronavirus all at the same time?
All at the same time.
A little bit of a change for me, man.
You're up to it. Come on.
I'm in shock. Okay.
When you said you fixed your boat, man, I had a real desire to. Oh, come on, let's go over Jay's and go on a boat. Oh,
Yep.
I know. Yeah, all my kids want to do the same thing, and they, well, you can't do it.
So you want to ask him the question?
Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow I'm getting a COVID patient, and I told Billy that it's probably a good idea that we sleep in separate bedrooms for a little while because it's safe. Mm-hmm. And he said, "God's our protector," and I said, "You can still be safe. You can still be my protector. If there's a 5-alarm fire, I'm not going to run in there just because. I'm still going to be safe out here."
Right. I agree.
My wife agrees.
He said he doesn't agree with me at all.
I know. I can't imagine not. I can't imagine not sleeping with her. I just can't imagine it. And
it'd be in the next room.
I think God could definitely. If I'm going to, how can I put this? Just having a wall between us, it's almost as me saying, well, God will protect you out there, but when you come home, then I might not be protected. And I know I've probably said it myself 1,000 times years and years ago. Look, he gave you a good mind. Use it. Good sense. Be sensible. All those things. I feel like like I said before, I don't. I'm dead to this coronavirus. I don't even think about it. I don't even. It's not part of my life.
Part of my life.
But no, it's not really part.
Well, it's part of my job. Part of my job.
Part of your job.
Dealing with it every day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
I don't want to bring that home.
So what would you all think? Would you say, yeah, that would be wise? Go sleep in the other room, or you know what? It really wouldn't matter. I mean, she does all the protective things. She changes in the garage. She sprays with bleach. She disinfects it. She throws things away. She does all that stuff before she comes in. I mean, the first thing she does is kiss me when she comes in the house. I mean, so.
Be it unto you as your faith is, Billy. Listen, there's a lot of different things you all just talked about. and you don't want to conflate them all together. Okay, so there's a couple of things. If Jill was married to Jesus, would Jesus sleep in the other room? Would Jesus sleep in the other room? Okay, that's how you want to just look at that fact, just as a factual basis. Whether just from the truth's perspective, not about what we're going to do because what's in our heart. I think you have what the truth is, and then you have what we're going to do because of what's in our hearts, right? And so what I would say is that it's the truth that God's life overcomes the coronavirus. It's the truth that the coronavirus can't overcome God's life. If Jesus was in the house, he would sleep in the bed with Jill, okay? And so I think you can both agree about that. I'm hoping you can both agree about that. And so that discerns doctrinally what is the truth. But then you have what's in both of your hearts, right? And then you want to examine what's in your own heart to see what's your motivation, either behind sleeping in separate rooms or not sleeping in the same room, right? And you go with what's in your heart about that. Billy, you said you can't imagine not sleeping with her.
Right.
Right. So is the motivation of that you're not going to sleep in another room, that you can't imagine not sleeping with her, or just that God's life is greater than the coronavirus?
Oh,
right?
God's
Because you
life both.
You
God's
would
life
you
than
would
the coronavirus, and I am
you
just
would
when I went up to help our son build that addition. I mean, I can't sleep very well to begin with, but I really couldn't sleep because I'm so used to her being next to me. So it's both.
Okay, so you wouldn't want the motivation between not observing some distance just to be, I can't imagine not sleeping with her, right? Because that sounds more like an external motive than just, right, God's life is greater. It's an external motive that isn't just faith. And then what you want to weigh into that is, even if you believe that, is that sear Jill's conscience? Right? Let's say you're fully persuaded you ain't going to get no coronavirus. Is Jill going to be, is she going to believe that? Is she going to be free, or is her conscience going to be seared the whole time? Right? Is she going to be like really stressed out about it? And so you, like, all the time I have the faith that's in my heart, and I see what's in my heart to do. And honestly, the things that the faith in my heart tells me to do, a lot of people think, what the hell is that guy thinking? Right? And I would never want them to be, I would never want them trying to do what I do because of the faith that's in my heart, because then their conscience can be seared. Do you see what I'm saying? So you guys are grown people. You're going to decide what you want to do for yourself. But Billy, I would encourage you to consider her conscience and not just your faith. Okay? Because your faith might be enough to move a mountain. And I mean, if you have God's faith in you, it could be enough to move a mountain. But if where Jill's at in her heart is a little bit anxious about the coronavirus and how it could impact you, I think you really want to weigh, as much as the faith that's in you, you want to weigh, how is that going to affect her conscience? And maybe her conscience could get to the place where the coronavirus doesn't bother her, but is she there now? And if she's not, do I want her conscience to be riddled with the anxiety, right? And so you get into preferring the other one over yourself, or considering what's in the other one, not just considering what's in you, right? And then, Jill, I would encourage you, because you said you could still just be safe and all of that. Do you think that you're running into the fire?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're running into the fire, but you don't want him to run into the fire.
Right.
And do you feel protected running into the fire, or do you think it's just up in the air?
I don't know. I feel like it's up in the air.
You think it's up in the air?
Yeah. It's yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can still be protected by God and still get the virus and still die.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be on this earth. He's not going to be here on this earth if he gets it.
Yeah. No, I get it completely. And so at the end of the day, outside of what you decide or don't decide, I would encourage you to be honest with yourself about where you're at. And what that means is when you're hanging out with God and you say you can still be safe, you would want, if any of your motivation about wanting to sleep apart is born from some type of fear, you would want God to iron that out, right? And so don't feel any shame if part of your motivation does have some fear in it, right? Be honest with yourself and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I know God conquered death. I know that we'll live forever, but the thought of Billy passing or not being here right now on this earth, there is some fear there, right? Be honest with God about that if that's where you're at, and just keep talking with him about it so you can have that ironed out of your heart. But you would never want to try to force yourself into saying you have faith, right? If you feel afraid about that, you wouldn't want to make yourself do something that would contradict what's in your heart, right?
I mean, we're all self-isolating because of the same thing, right? We're not outside, we're staying inside so nobody gets this virus. But I'm going to a home that has the virus and could possibly bring it into my home.
Yeah.
That is scary.
You know, Greg, you made an amazing point. The Holy Spirit really touched my heart. It didn't even dawn on me. So here's what it is. I was so consumed with, hey, we're good. He's got us covered. I didn't even consider my wife's heart in that I would feel better. My heart would feel better if we didn't. And so I didn't even consider her love for me. Because I love you, I think I would rather not. And you brought that up perfectly. So thank you.
It's like,
that was perfect.
It's like eating the meat offered to idols. I know the idols are dead, and I know that the meat offered to idols doesn't mean anything. But if I'm sitting with the Jewish guy who's been taught that meat offered to idols is defiled, I'm not going to try to get him to eat the meat with me because I know that God will overcome everything, right? I'm going to consider his conscience, right? And Billy, I tend to think like you. Listen, I wouldn't be distancing from anybody, right? And I have gone and hung out with people and met with people, right? Because in my heart, that's what I felt to do. I wouldn't wear a mask because in my heart, the faith that I have tells me that I would overcome it. And so I wouldn't wear a mask and I wouldn't distance. I wouldn't do any of that, but neither would I try to make other people think they should do that, right? Not because I don't think the same could be true for them, but if they're not already there, I'm not going to try to get them to like buck up and pretend they're there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That would sear their conscience and cause them a very big problem, right? And so that's what I would do. But that doesn't mean that now I'm going to conform them to the faith that's in my heart, right? Can that faith also be born in them? Yeah, by the power of God's might. And I can commit that into God's hands, right? And so if you're feeling like, well, Father, I want Jill to have this same assurance inside of her, you can let your prayer with God be about that and commit it unto his hands to keep her heart from the fear that is circling from the coronavirus, right?
Boy, and freedom for both of us, man. For both of us.
Exactly, because she's inundated with language that is based on the medical field. And so she's being inundated with the medical field and the world's view of the coronavirus and all the steps that they're going to take. A lot of those steps are the things they need to do inside of that system to best prepare and to best keep safe, right? It's measures that they use. So her conscience has been filled with that, right? And so one of the things I'm sure they told her is to social distance from you. I'm sure that's one of the guidelines they've given her and told her that that's smart and it's good. They've probably filled her with, you need to protect your loved ones because you're going into the lion's den, right? And now you don't want to bring back the lion with you. And so those are the things you want to consider. And I would look at it less like right and wrong. And I would look at it more like what's in each of our hearts and what does that look like us honoring one another, honoring the other one over myself, right?
That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
And if the shoe was on the other foot, if I was a doctor and I was going into a highly contagious situation and I was going to come home to Marie's going to sleep in the other bed. And it's not a matter of faith. It's a matter of the fact that in healthcare field, it is spreading because it's a highly contagious thing that we're dealing with here. And I don't want Marie to be at risk in that. And it's not that I don't have faith, that I don't believe God is protecting me or that God is with me in the fire, but it's, that's my heart toward it. And I know, Billy, that if you were a doctor and you weren't there, you'd be thinking most of your wife. I know that's the case.
This is a verification because when she said I'm sleeping in the other room, I said no, we're not going to do that. We talked about it. If it was on the other foot, you would, and I went. Yeah, I would.
I knew it would be something like that.
Well, then that's really the same thing, Billy. By you sleeping in the other room, it's the same thing because it's just you're considering what's in her heart above what's in yours,
Yes.
right? Whereas if you were the doctor and she wasn't, you'd be considering her above yourself, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome stuff.
Also, I see, what's in Jill's heart is actually love for you. It's not really fear. It's in her love for you. And also, in your love for Jill, Billy, you can talk to Jesus in that, like where, in comparison that Paul makes in Ephesians about, Jesus laying his life down for the bride. He'll fill your heart with that kind of love for her, where you can wash her with the water of the word, which is his good opinion of her. And when you're laying in bed and you miss her, you can talk to him about that, and he'll soothe your heart right to sleep in those wonderful, beautiful thoughts. And then when you wake up, and you could even write her a letter about those thoughts that you're having that are actually God's thoughts. And it could actually even draw you close together.
Yeah. Glory to God.
Amen.
Anybody else have any thoughts, questions?
I guess I do.
Well, Marie and I just realized that it was what's today, Wednesday, right? We thought it was Tuesday, so that's why we just got on. So,
We're a day late.
yeah, I think we got our days and nights screwed up too.
You're not alone in that.
No, I know.
So I have a question. So when we say that God has overcome the coronavirus, are we saying that if you're exposed, you're not going to get it? Or are we saying that he has overcome the coronavirus in the same way that he has overcome death? Meaning, if we get the coronavirus, we don't have to have any fear of death because we might leave this earth, but we're still going to have life forever with him, in eternity.
You forgot what I said about the Corona's t-shirt. I said, I'm going to buy this t-shirt that says, I overcame the coronavirus. And if I die because of the coronavirus, I want them to put that on me while I'm in my coffin, that I overcame the coronavirus. So that answers your question.
So when we say God overcame the coronavirus, we're not saying we're not going to get it. We're saying if we get it and if we die, it's okay because dying we don't ever die. We just change our address.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
the overcoming of the coronavirus is to not over concern your heart with the coronavirus, not to live in fear that you might get the coronavirus, that you know that God is with you in the fire. You remember Daniel and his three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
king told them, listen, I'm about to throw you in that fire, but you need to change your mind about what you're thinking. And they said, listen, our God is capable of saving us in those flames, but if he's not, we'll still not bow our knees to bow, even if it's not. So the issue is they had no fear in their hearts facing the ordeal that they were about to face.
Mhm.
That's what the real issue. He's protecting your heart from the fear of death.
I don't have any fear of the coronavirus, but at the same time, I feel that we need to be smart
Of course.
and protect ourselves.
Sure.
Also, I don't share this, you know, I haven't really shared it with too many people, just those that are close to me, but I got the, I had it, and all the symptoms kept coming up over a period, you know, and they were increasing. And I talked to Jesus about it because I didn't know what these symptoms were. They started out like really slow, and the one that was really bothering me was that I couldn't taste my food. And I also had like a pain in the back of my neck where I knew it was like, or the back of my, like my back, and I knew it was my lung. And then, you know, coughing and tired. Like, oh my gosh, I was like wanting to sleep all the time, but there was things that I knew that God had put in my heart to do. And so that's when I began to talk to him. And then I just happened, because I don't Google symptoms of the corona or anything to do with the coronavirus, but I did think, well, maybe there is something that I can do, like a natural remedy or something for this bad taste in my mouth, like so that I could enjoy food. And so I did, and then that's when I discovered that that was the beginning of the symptoms. And so then, along with everything else, I'm not, when I said to Jesus, well, where would I have been exposed? And I had gone for coffee with a friend of mine. We spent 5 hours together. Actually, we went out for dinner. This was back when they first started to, like before they closed the coffee shop, you know. So there was hardly anybody in it, but the restaurants were still open. But we spent 5 hours together, and he had just gotten off a flight the day before. So he had been exposed, and that's what Jesus had shown me. And I said, all right, well, I have no fear of death whatsoever. In fact, if anything, I've, you know, been welcoming going home to Jesus for a very long time. But at this specific stage in my life, I know that I was born for such a day as this, because what's in my heart to do is to help those that are isolated, and it's bringing out all the fear. And so business has increased, um, and I'm doing exactly what God told me that He was raising me up to do.
Well,
And
Corey, can you connect that back to what Cindy said? Because the point that Cindy made was, I'm not afraid of death, and I think we can still be smart. So can you connect it to what she said?
yeah, I felt, and I am still being smart. Um, but in regards to dying of it, this was something new for me because when I realized, okay, he, told me that I had been exposed, and I said, well, what shall I do? And he says, I want you to just continue to do what is in your heart to do. And so I began to just continue to do what was in my heart to do. And it was very interesting because I hadn't experienced having to ignore the symptoms in my body like that. And they continued to come up. And as they did, Jesus was saying, cast those cares, cast those cares. And I was cleaning at the time and dumping stuff in the garbage as he was saying this. So I was kind of like taking my cares and dumping them in the garbage at the same time as I was cleaning. And as I became more vibrant and the symptoms began to disappear. And that's the way it is. And now I'm enjoying food, and it's just like, and I am still staying safe. I totally agree with you, Cindy. But I don't think we need to come into, as my experience taught me, I don't think we need to come into agreement with any kind of symptoms or anything like that would say, okay, it's, my turn to die, or do I need to get
Okay. I don't want to lose sight of the topic here that Cindy said, which is we can still be smart. And so I want to speak directly to the still being smart, because still being smart could look different for each person.
Right.
Okay. And the last thing we want to do is judge one another by our own idea of what it means to still be smart.
Right.
Okay. It's the last thing we want to do is, because we all have our own knowledge of good and evil. I promise you, each one of us got our own idea of what is the good and the right way and what is the evil and the wrong way.
Yep.
And with everything, even with the kind of car we buy, the kind of clothes we wear, the kind of hair we dress, whether we got a beard or don't have a beard. And so I promise you, all of us have our own view of what is the good and the right way to deal with the coronavirus. The last thing we want to do is judge one another or bite and devour one another over our idea of what is smart. That's the last thing we want to do, right? And we want to allow each person to have their own view of it in their heart, okay? Without judging them as being wrong or corrupted or anything. The best all of us could do is say, you know what? This is how I feel, and I think this is the best way, but truthfully, I don't really know, and I'm not sure anybody else knows. But this is what I feel convicted of, and so I'm going with it, right? But we don't want to come together and judge each other. Now, as far as the overcoming of the coronavirus, I don't really see that we'll have a change of address, because we're going to dwell on the earth for all eternity, right? When I think of overcoming the coronavirus, neither do I think of life and death being found in whether I perish from this earth or don't perish from this earth, right? The amount of time that we spend on this earth. You ever notice how when a person grows older, like I was speaking with Harvey the other day, and his grandfather, I think, is 95. And so Harvey was just asking him about his life. And does he feel like he's lived a long life, or does he feel like this, or does he feel like, Harvey said that his grandpa said, it feels like I blinked my eyes and here I am 95.
Yeah.
It feels like I was 10 years old a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Well, I think we as humans have been influenced by the idea that comes from the world that life or death is found in this world, and it's not. So when I think of overcoming the coronavirus or living and dying, I don't think about perishing from this world or not perishing from this world, right? I think about, do I have Christ in me now? And am I going to live eternally on a glorified earth in a glorified body? Right? That's what I think about. Life and death is found in that, right? Life and death is found in the power of the tongue. And that doesn't mean walking around and confessing all day long positive confessions. It means, have you confessed that blessing in life is found in God and his strength to give it to you as a gift? Or do you think blessing in life is found in your own works to attain to it for yourself, right? The power of the tongue. What's the confession in your mouth, right? And so I think Christians in general are doing themselves a disservice if they're functioning from the mindset that if they succumb to the coronavirus or any other thing, that somehow they could be stolen from. Okay? I think that's the wrong mindset. It's the wrong mindset if I think that should I perish, then something can be stolen from Becky. I don't think that's a true statement. Okay? Does that mean Becky won't be grieved? Does that mean that Becky won't feel a sting? Does that mean that Becky won't feel that it's not right and she won't have a time of grieving over my death? Absolutely, she would have that. But that's not to suggest that something has been stolen from her, because she has eternal life and we're going to live for all eternity on this earth, right, in glorified human flesh. And so I promise you, whatever years we think we're going to have on this earth, it's really no more than a day, right? What does it say? All flesh is like grass that fades away, right? And so I think we tend to put too much of an emphasis on the life we have now in this world. And by that, I don't mean that we can't enjoy it or that we can't have a desire to experience it. But I mean, we put too much of an emphasis as if we don't get this certain things or certain ways, that now somehow our life has been stolen from us, or it's been stolen from our loved ones, or it's been stolen from this. Man, the hell it has. If it has, then there hasn't been a resurrection.
Oh.
If death could take anything from us that have Christ, then there hasn't really been a resurrection, right? And so it's one thing to say, well, listen, man, I'm not going to go like jump in the fire or go stand in the middle of a tornado to tempt God and see if he'll protect me or not, because that's just foolish. But as we say that, and as we say, let's be safe, right? I'm not going to go jump in a pond full of alligators or crocodiles to try to prove that God will protect me. But as we live by whatever we think is safe, let us not confuse living safely with the idea that should something happen to us, then now our kids aren't going to have life, or they're not going to have life, or this grandkids aren't going. We don't want to dwell there, right? That's the wrong way around it. What we want to think is that should this world come to try to take something from me, God will redeem whatever the world tries to take from me. He'll redeem it for me. He'll redeem it for my kids. He'll redeem it for my grandkids. And it'll be as if nothing could be taken from us. It will be as if nothing could be stolen from us. That's how we want to live and think about it, right? We adopt like this, what's it called? It's like a bucket list mindset. Does everybody know what the bucket list is?
Yep.
Right? You got to pick all these things to do to go and experience life. We put a heavy emphasis on the experiences in this world. This is a difficult saying for people. Guys, the only reason why we're born into this world is so we can receive Christ and live in the earth that's coming. And live in the earth that's coming with all of our family members for all eternity. So it doesn't matter if we're in this world for one day or for 120 years. What matters is do we have Christ in us? Because if we have Christ in us, we're going to experience all the life that we, above and beyond, exceedingly above and beyond any life we could ever hope to experience in this world, right? And it would do us well to think about that, right? And I've challenged this thought before. We can't look at Jesus and say because he died at the age of 33 that somehow he didn't live a full life. Does somebody want to come and say Jesus didn't live a full life because he was nailed to a tree?
Mm-mm.
Why not? He's only 33. What about his brothers? What about his brothers and his sisters and his mom and his nieces and nephews that are coming?
Yeah.
Haven't they missed out now? Do you see what I'm saying? We want to look at what we're busy with and just let our thoughts be shaped the right way around the things that we enjoy and the things that we feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. That was
About
great.
being, yeah, absolutely be smart, because listen, this is what I feel to do in my heart, and these are the reasons why I feel to do it. My family, my grandkids, my husband, my children, you know, That's why I feel to do it. Should the world come to try to take from one of us or try to steal from us, I know that it can't. And I know whatever it is that the world tries to reach into my pocket and take, God's going to redeem it. And it's going to be as if nothing was ever taken.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how we would overcome whatever sting or sorrow that could happen. It's like the world tries to pick our pocket, but then God runs it down, gets it back, and puts it back in our pocket. And he puts it back in our pocket exceedingly abundantly above all that we had in our pocket before our pocket was picked.
That's right.
Right? Right?
Well, Pine Grove's worth. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Good.
Our treasure is not in this world.
No.
But that doesn't mean that we just act flippant. Right? But it's that we go through our life in this world recognizing our treasure isn't here. That's for our benefit. It guards our heart. It's not us trying to make God happy. It's not us trying to be good Christians. It's not us trying to do it the right way. It's that if we can have our hearts guarded from the idea that something can be stolen from us, we'll actually be able to enjoy what we have while we have it. If we're all the time living as if things can be stolen or taken from us, you don't ever really get to enjoy it. It's like if I got a nice bike, right? But I'm so worried about people stealing my bike that I can't let anybody see the bike. And I also can't let anybody see me riding it, because then they'll know the bike is great and they'll also know where to find the bike. So I got this great bike, but don't you know it's locked up in my shed because I don't want anybody to steal it. I'm never enjoying the bike, right? It's like when I was young and so the girl that I dated put these speakers in the truck that I had, this nice amp and these great speakers, and the radio was real loud and nice and perfect. We never played that thing loud. Do you know why? Because we thought if people heard it, they would steal it. Right? And so we never enjoyed what that radio could do, because we were all the time just thinking about it could be stolen. Right? And so we never enjoyed it. So we don't want to live like that. It's wonderful for us to be passionate about our lives and the things we love about our lives. And it's wonderful for us to embrace those passions and to be smart and safe around those passions. But we don't want that to be confused with, if we don't get it exactly like that, now something's been stolen from us. Because then we'll live in fear of trying to hold on to, and we'll live in fear of what we could lose, and then we'll never enjoy what we have while we have it, right? I'd rather live every day I have in this world with Becky and with all of you, never once having the thought that something could be taken from me, right? I'd rather just enjoy that you're here now to the max that you're here now, and enjoy you here now to the max that I can have you with me now, knowing that nothing can keep me from walking with you for all eternity anyway, right? And so it's like a blink of an eye, guys. I mean, I was gone in Europe for 30 days. How many of you remember that I was even gone, really? Right? I mean, here I am, right? And so it's like that. The thought of, well, we could miss them. Yeah, that's going to be like that, man. Paul said himself, in the twinkling of an eye. Right? And so it's not like if we leave this world and we're present with God for a little while, we're going to be up there like looking at our clocks. When am I going to see them, man? Gosh, it's been so long. I miss my daughter. I miss my It's not going to be like that. It's going to be like the blink of an eye, right? Just like Harvey's 95-year-old grandfather said, his whole life has been like the blink of an eye, right? It's just like that. And so we just want our thoughts about these things to shape by eternal life and not by the wisdom in the world.
Greg, I visited work after 2 weeks on vacation, and I thought they would say, would you come back now? Instead it was, what are you doing here? I could have been it really doesn't matter. It's all okay.
Oh man,
that's good.
That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. And listen, just to keep talking about being safe, you know, Paul told Timothy when he had stomach problems, take some wine, mix it in the water, take it, it'll help your stomach, right? When the Christians were being persecuted, they didn't just go run out in the street, all of them, and say, here we are, kill us. They met together and prayed, right, in the upper room. Now, there were times where one of the apostles or Stephen or Philip or one of those guys would wax bold, and even in the face of certain death, they were like, so what? Right? Individual circumstances. It wasn't like a group think kind of a thing, right? And so when we talk about being smart and being safe, and I said, well, I wouldn't wear a mask, neither would I social distance myself, because that's how I feel on the inside. I don't feel anything negative about someone else who wants to do that or thinks that's the right way. But I will say this, I've grown up in my life training and running all the time. So I'm sensitive to like nutrient type of stuff, right? So I don't exactly feel like I'm doing it to try to preserve my life, but I have been taking care of my immune system. And I have been doing things to juice that up and minding the way that I eat, right? And when I go out and meet with people that need prayer and counsel and all of that, I come home and I drink hot tea, hot lemon, honey tea, because I know what the effect that has on the throat and the immune system, right? And I'm way juiced up on my vitamin C intake and my turmeric intake and just all those things, right? So I'm mindful of those things because in my mind, I actually think that's the best natural way to combat it. That's just my view, right? I think, for me, I think that's better than a mask or social distancing. And so that's what I've been doing, right? But I'm not doing it out of fear or anything else. I'm just doing it as, well, why not let my body be as strong as it can be if these things are here? I'm taking zinc, right? I mean, I'm drinking emergency twice a day. I'm just doing things, right?
Yep. Jacinta had a question. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just going back to the message. I'm probably going to paraphrase this, but when you mentioned about when we hear Jesus speaking, to also see it as the Father speaking, I thought it was great because if people don't connect Jesus and God, the Father together, then I've seen it where people are like, oh, I feel closer with Jesus than the Father and all these other distinctions that happen. And I thought that was also really great that was mentioned.
That is beautiful, isn't it, Jay? I mean, woe was us if we never see Jesus and see that's the Father talking, right? I mean, honestly, one of the main things Jesus said was, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. That's and right. if we never make the connection that in seeing the man Jesus, we've seen and heard God talk, right? God himself the Father himself has breathed on us, right? He has blown on us the breath of life. Woe is us if we never see Jesus raised from the dead and see that's the Father talking to us. Or we don't see Jesus nailed to the cross and we don't see the Father there. And we don't see the Father bearing his heart and his soul for us, right? Woe is us if we don't ever make that connection. Because I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of the gospel is to connect that, right? Is to connect, that's Jesus. Listen, I think I did a little video about this, but one of the primary ministries of Jesus was to reveal the heart of the Father. And so it's what was in the heart of the Father when we were suffering at the hands of sin and death. Now, we all thought what was in the heart of the Father was disappointment, anger, thoughts of punishing, thoughts of cursing us, thoughts of forsaking us. That's what was in the world. But in Jesus, when we see Jesus in anguish on the cross, when we see him in grief on the cross, we sometimes lose sight that Christ is the manifold wisdom of God. So he is declaring something about a human in anguish and suffering, but he's also revealing the heart of the Father. And so if you've seen Jesus in anguish or grieving or suffering on the cross, then you've seen what was in the heart of the Father when he saw us grieving and suffering and being beaten by sin and death, right? That's the Father there. That's the pain that was in the Father's heart when he saw us being tormented by sin and death. You see Jesus writhing in pain on the cross, then you've seen the heart of the Father writhing in pain when he saw us being abused by sin and death. And we're supposed to be able to see that, right? We're supposed to be able to see, oh my gosh, that's the grief that was in the Father's heart. when he saw us dead in sin.
Yeah.
And if we don't make that connection, man, we're missing out on a beautiful aspect of the gospel and really being rooted and grounded in the love of God. Right? If we don't make that connection. I mean, all that, you guys know what a big deal I make about rebuking the idea that the Father forsook the Son.
Right.
You guys all know, listen, there's not a lot of things I'll call heresy. That's straight up heresy. The reason why I make such a big deal about it is because if you see the Father and Son as separate there on the cross, then you can't see what was in the Father's heart for you when you were dead in sin. Because that's the picture of the Father's heart. If you've seen Jesus in anguish, in grief, on account of sin and death on the cross, then you've seen the Father in anguish and grief on account of man being in bondage to sin and death. And if you now separate the Father from the Son, guess what you don't see? You don't see the grief that was in the Father's heart at your suffering. Yeah. Right?
Right. Amen. Amen.
I think most believers, when they consider Jesus on the cross dying, they really do consider that. They're taught something different about it, but they can see in that act on the cross the Father's love for them. And even though they're taught that the Father's doing it to the Son, it's apparent there in what he did.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
Going once.
Yeah, going twice.
You know, I do want to say that, man, I love you all, and this experience, we miss you all so much. It's, you know, and so you really are family. You know, you really are my brothers and sisters, and it's that's one of the hard parts, not being able to see you and hug you, and yeah, it's kind of it's a two-edged sword. It's hard, yet it's wonderful knowing you're my brother and sister. I love you so much.
But can you imagine this technology? It's hard to believe that you can sit here at a computer and look at one another and talk.
Each other.
It really is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just sitting here enjoying y'all's faces and seeing you, and that's part of the night.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and listen, I would just encourage everybody too, and everybody's probably already been exposed to this on Facebook now, right? Everybody, there's many different opinions about many different theories about what happened, why it happened, how it happened. What does it mean that it happened? What are people going to do now because it happened? How are we going to react to what we're going to do because of how it happened and what happened and what they want to do about what happened? There's so many different things out there about that. Listen, you're all grown people, but let me just tell you, you don't need to know about any of those things to have peace. You don't need to know about any of those things for your life to abound as you walk in this world. It doesn't, from the dawn of the fall, people have plotted evil in their heart, right? And so you don't need to know about the evil that they plotted because you know about the one who's overcome all evil, right? And so don't let all the conspiracy theories and all the different theories, whether they're conspiracy or not, some of that stuff might be true. But don't let yourself be convinced that you need to know about it so you can fight against the evil, or so that you could do this, or so that you could be prepared, or so that you could know. Man, you just need to know Jesus. I promise you, you can live innocently in this world, not having your conscience corrupted with the evil surmisings of people that are filled with laboring and toiling, right? You don't have to have your conscience filled with that in order to overcome. Knowing about all those things and knowing about the evil plans of people who have been bitten by the serpent, that's not the power unto your life being preserved or you having peace. Jesus is the power, right? And so I would just encourage everybody, as everybody is posting about how the virus came about, why it came about, what people want to do because the virus came about. All as people, man, talk about all those things, don't allow yourself to be convinced that you need to know about any of that, right? If you want to read it, feel free to read it, but don't feel like you need to read it so that you're in the know. What you need to know is Jesus. That's what you need to know. What you need to know is about the life that's in him. And I promise you, you'd be much better off not having your conscience filled with the labors and toils of people that are walking in darkness, right?
Mhm.
Amen. Get a hallelujah all the way around on that one.
I hope that makes some sense, right? We don't even want to come and say, well, they're conspiracy theories. Listen, some of the stuff might be true. But then ask yourself, what am I going to get if I ascertain that it's true, or by knowing that it's true, or by hearing something about something that may be true? Is that going to give me peace, love, and joy and kindness? Is that going to preserve my life? No. What is going to do those things? Jesus. Okay. So let me be busy with that, right? We'd rather be busy with the light than with the darkness, right? There's no shame if we watch or read. I'm not shaming anyone, but I'm just saying, listen, man, rather let us be busy with the light and know that than busy with the darkness. When they're teaching FBI agents how to look for counterfeit money, they don't bring the counterfeits in there and have them investigate the counterfeits. They bring the real money in there, and they become experts at the real that they pick up on the fake like that. And so don't let the knowledge that there could be some corrupt things going on around you make you think that you need to know about the corrupt things in order to be a winner or to conquer or to overcome. No. The thing you need to know about is the light. And you could be such an expert on the light that will cause you to overcome whatever corrupt thing could be going on.
Amen.
I hope that
Amen.
makes some sense.
Well, I don't care if that's for anybody else, but it was for me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Glory to God.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Erica had her hand up.
No, she was clapping.
Did she? No, she was clapping.
Oh, she was clapping?
Yeah, you can do at the bottom. There's reactions you can do. You can do a thumbs up like that. I don't know if you can see it out there. Erica just did a thumbs up. You can do a clap.
Yeah, there it is. Glory to God.
You just thumbs down?
No.
And I second,
Thumbs up.
and I want to just reiterate what Billy and Shannon said. It's just great to be able to see you guys. I mean, listen, God can overcome anything, but imagine if we didn't have this Zoom and we couldn't see each other's faces. And now it's been like 5 weeks or something? Yeah. Imagine that. We're not even seeing each other. We're not even hearing each other. Man, that would really suck.
That would hurt.
Thank God, right?
Amen. So what are you going to talk about on Sunday?
I don't know for sure yet, but I think I might go into detail about the mark of the beast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. Let's have our own when it's all over with, our own Passover festival feast together.
Yeah.
It's over, yeah.
Yeah,
that sounds like a great idea.
Passed over us all.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what he means.
Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
I want to see how much Jill's hair has grown. It's looking
at
good,
it, yeah.
Jill. Really has grown a lot.
All right, gang. I guess we'll call it quits here. It's been a good
Billy.
right.
Bye, guys.
I love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Good seeing you, Sherry.
I'll be working Sunday.
Good seeing your picture, Doug and Michelle. We would have liked to see your faces.
It's a
but-
beautiful
I
picture.
had a quick prayer request.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, okay, so this is something that's weighing heavy in my heart, and I've been talking to God about it, but I'm not sure if I'm hearing from Him or if it's just my own heart saying something about the topic. I don't know. So if you could all keep me in prayer about that thing, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll be glad to do that. So,
Amen.
okay, gang.
Hey, guys.
All right.
Love you all.
Love
Love
you.
you guys.
See you
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Love y'all. Good
Love
seeing
you.
you.
I'll have the video out in YouTube here shortly.
Okay.